spectrum that he considered Sanders too far to the right, even though he supported him. Another was a young white businessman from Kansas who proudly supported Trump. I think his name was Ernie. The third, I'll call him Red Hawk, was a Native American media personality from Oklahoma who didn't like any of the candidates. I was the only person with a somewhat favorable opinion of Hillary Clinton, but I decided to hold my cards close to the vest and ask questions instead. I could not believe my good fortune. Here I was, contemplating writing a book about our divided nation, and I had just been gifted with my own little focus group, magically assembled by Amtrak. A gathering like this wouldn't happen in the outside world because people have learned to avoid political confrontations. We seemingly use a secret code to quickly determine another's political beliefs. And if the stranger's ideas are opposed to ours, we quickly part company. This situation would be different, however, because we all had to eat. I immediately recognized it as a golden opportunity and said a silent prayer of gratitude. My next thought was, don't blow it, ask the right questions, keep the conversation civil. I have experience in leading dialogue circles and knew I needed a dialogue question to start the conversation, something that spoke to the big picture. Suddenly a question popped into my mind. What is the sacred purpose of America? I asked, and then added, and why do you think your candidate will fulfill it? Not surprisingly, Ernie, the Trump supporter, jumped in first, and I braced myself for a stump speech about making America great again. Instead, I was pleasantly surprised when he laid out a reasonably intelligent argument. The status quo of politics had become so corrupt that it was now necessary to take a sledgehammer to break it up, and Trump is just the guy to do it. We need to reset, he claimed. Without Trump, America has lost its purpose. With Trump, we will regain it. I was not even remotely a Trump supporter. In fact, I considered him extremely dangerous. But amazingly, I had no quarrel with what I was hearing. James, the Bernie supporter, was having a harder time. He finally interrupted in exasperation, accusing Trump of being a racist and of dividing the nation. Do you think Trump really cares about a guy like me, a gay black man? No, he doesn't, and he doesn't care about you either, Ernie. He's just a con man. Get over it. He only cares about himself and how he can make himself and his family richer. I had no quarrel with anything James said either, and the fact that Ernie listened in silence rather than escalating the conflict pleased me. It was Ernie who then skillfully diverted the conversation to talk about his hometown, Lawrence, Kansas. We had just made a stop at the Lawrence, Kansas station. He had special affection for Lawrence, he said, even as he had moved to Wichita a decade ago to start his own manufacturing business. Wichita, he said, had a more diverse population. Lawrence was almost entirely white. He then pivoted to defending Trump against charges of racism, claiming he would do as much for the inner cities as the heartland, and that he would get the working class back to work. James was skeptical, again doubting that Trump cared about the middle class and predicting that he would just use the office to enrich himself. He also predicted that Trump would start a war to boost the economy, touching on my greatest fear. They went back and forth for quite some time while Red Hawk and I remained silent. And then I asked another question. What is the difference between Trump and Bernie? They both want to cut out trade deals and put American workers first. They both think the system is rigged. Ernie again took the bait. He had some sympathy for Sanders, but didn't think he was strong enough to break up the system. Sanders may be an independent, but he is still a politician. All talk, no action, he said, echoing one of Trump's more common refrains. It was then that the most curious thing happened. The more James and Ernie talked, the more they seemed to agree. I found myself agreeing with both of them part of the time, and I was pleased that the conversation remained civil.